War for the Planet of the Apes. My last movie review on this channel was of Baby Driver, and I said in that video that I was probably not going to review War for the Planet of the Apes or Spider-Man Homecoming because I was going on a 2-week-long trip in Colorado, Utah, and Arizona, and I just didn't know if I was going to really want to review War for the Planet of the Apes or Spider-Man Homecoming a week late. And then I saw War for the Planet of the Apes, and I have to talk about it. So a little background of me, I am a huge fan of the first 2 Planet of the Apes movies in this new reboot, and I was really looking forward to this movie. I was like, man, if War for the Planet of the Apes is great, then we're going to have an incredible trilogy. One of the best trilogies ever made, if it's great. And it was. Directed by Matt Reeves, starring Andy Serkis and Woody Harrelson and a whole bunch of other great actors and performers. War for the Planet of the Apes is easily in my top 2 favorite movies of the entire year. Let's talk about why. The special effects, they're the best I've ever seen, for sure. I have never seen motion capture better than this. There are close-up shots of Caesar's face and other apes' face, and I'm like, that is an ape. That is incredible. I've never seen CGI so good. I mean, this movie is just, it looks beautiful in every way. The cinematography, the special effects, everything in this movie is stellar. I've never, like, really, you look into the eyes of Caesar, you look at that face, and you're like, that is an ape, and he's smarter than me. I was also a great fan of the musical score. This is a war movie, and so you want it to have an epic score. This movie certainly had an incredible score. It kind of reminded me of Lord of the Rings in some ways, where, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm expecting big drums in this scene, and it goes, oh gosh, what, that just came out of my mouth. What I mean to say is that the musical score is not necessarily predictable, but it is epic in every way. It has just a lot of character. The drums come in when they need to, but also the more like quiet, high-pitched tunes that just play over, that just really draw that emotion out of you. They are perfectly placed, perfectly played in this movie, and as you can tell, I'm a big fan. And of course, the acting in this movie is stellar. Okay, Andy Serkis, I've just come to the conclusion that he's probably not going to get an Oscar nomination. He didn't get nominated for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He's probably not going to get it this year. I think he deserves to be nominated this year. His acting is incredible in this movie. Just, golly, there's so much emotion in his face. I mean, God. And also, Woody Harrelson is terrific in this movie. He's a terrifying villain, a complex villain, a villain you actually understand why he is the way he is, and that's very important. It's always annoying when you watch movies with bad villains where it's like their motivation sucks. You understand his motivation in this movie. You can see why he views the world the way he views it. And that's really, that causes a lot of conflict in the movie with Caesar, because he's like, well, I guess he's kind of right in some ways, but I don't know. Point is, you can understand why Woody Harrelson is the way he is, and you understand why some men are on his side. One of the biggest things I noticed about War for the Planet of the Apes in comparison with Dawn and Rise is War for the Planet of the Apes. I mean, it feels like a war movie. It is dark, it is deep, it is emotional, and it really draws you in. And the story itself is so emotional too. From the very beginning, you're like, this is the end. And the story itself, I'm not going to give anything away about the story, but it's so, I mean, it is emotional. There are times where you're like, you just want to cry, and you want to cry for apes, and not even for the humans. But I mean, you understand the humans, but you feel for those monkeys, man. You feel for those monkeys. Oh, another really cool thing about this movie is, and you see this in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler, but you can see that there are some apes that are actually working with the humans against the other apes. That's a really complex, very interesting alliance, and there's a lot of interesting scenes with that, and I was a big fan of them. I mean, like, really, it was just, God, the dialogue between Caesar and this one ape that's kind of like the main ape that you follow that's part of like the human-ape alliance. The dialogue in those scenes is so good between those two characters, just so good. Everything in this movie hits. The action, the acting, the story, the special effects, the cinematography, the music, everything just works perfectly into being a great, incredible end to an incredible trilogy, and I am so glad Caesar is one of the best lead characters in a trilogy that we have seen in a very long time. He is complex, there's so much emotion in him, and this movie they really display that full out. You see the inner mind of Caesar, and it's haunted, and it's broken, but it's wise, and it's humble, and it's kind, and it's awesome, and I like apes. What I just said a second ago could be taken in a number of ways. Don't take it in any way. And you know, one thing I really love about all of these movies is that the first words Caesar says in each movie is, they're always epic. In the first movie it was, "No!" In the second movie it was, "Apes together strong!" And in the third movie it was, "Not gonna tell you, cause that would be a spoiler, and we ain't doing that here." And the last thing I will say as a positive for War for the Planet of the Apes is the ending. It is exactly what it needs to be. Great closure to an incredible trilogy. And now for the cons. Yeah, I don't know what I was doing there either. One character that kind of annoyed me was Bad Ape. You see him in the trailer a little bit. I liked the character, all right? Funny character. However, it was kind of... that character was kind of borderline. Like, I did not think Baby Groot worked in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I thought it was overused, misused, all that. Bad Ape towed that line. Funny sometimes, other times I was like, yeah. And one thing that kind of did bother me was at the very beginning of the film, there are a few sentences that describe what happens in the previous two films. I thought the kind of recaps were a bit unnecessary. Of course, that's not really a part of the film, but it just kind of annoyed me. But anyways, guys, all those flaws and, you know, those basically just nitpicks doesn't really take away from this movie at all. This is one of my favorite movies of the year. Top two, probably right behind Logan. And I think it's the best of the Apes franchise, and I think it'll be on my top 5 list of the year for sure. And I mean, I just think it's an incredible film. Great ending, last act of an incredible trilogy. And I think the Planet of the Apes trilogy is probably now one of the greatest trilogies ever made. Which is saying a lot, a lot. I just said a lot. War for the Planet of the Apes gets an A+. And also, since I'm reviewing this movie, I did happen to see Spider-Man Homecoming on my trip, and I will say that I really was not a huge fan of Spider-Man Homecoming. I could go into detail, but I don't really want to. Okay, but I will say this, okay? I think the biggest problems in this movie were the writing. I thought the villain was extremely weak, had the stupidest motivation possible, and I was never afraid of the villain. There was hardly any stakes in this movie. The writing really didn't support a very good story. The story just wasn't that good. And I thought that Tom Holland as Spider-Man, he's a good actor, but what they gave him to say was not very good. Like, Spider-Man, when he puts on the suit, he's supposed to be really cool, joking around, you know, being all quick and all that stuff, you know, being awesome, okay? However, I thought whenever he was in the suit, he was just honestly kind of annoying, because what he was saying was supposed to be funny and cool. Didn't come off that way to me. And, you know, as for the awkward shy stuff, they did an okay job, but I didn't really care about his whole thing with this girl that he liked. I didn't buy into a whole lot of the high school drama that they were trying to set up. I thought they could have done a better job. Anyways, that's my short little review. I would give Spider-Man Homecoming like a C-. So ladies and gentlemen, tell me, what did you think of War of the Planet of the Apes and or Spider-Man Homecoming? Leave your comments in the section below and let me know. And as always, if you like this video, please like it and subscribe, tell your friends about the channel. And hey, the next time you're at a zoo, maybe don't taunt the apes, don't throw rocks at them, because they will rip a hole in your face the size of a balloon.